Hi Halton family, Mrs. Ward here again. Like I said in some of my other videos, I know that one of the biggest barriers to reading is sometimes knowing what kind of text to read. So what I've put together with the help of Miss Smith today is a series of books from different genres that you might try. So this will be useful to you if you're not sure what to read at all and you find it difficult to find a book that interests you. But it's also useful to you if you are a reader who reads every day, because sometimes you get stuck in a bit of a rut and you read the same genre, by which we mean the type of text, so whether it's a horror or a comedy or a romance, and you get stuck in it and you end up staying in that and you never sort of diversify, you never spread away from it. So hopefully I can give you some recommendations of different texts today, and you can take some of them and give them a go. So I'd like to start with this dystopian text. So for those of you who don't know what dystopian is essentially set in our world, but something has broken, something's gone wrong in the world. It might be an apocalypse has happened and these are the human beings that are left surviving and they've got a new broken society. Dystopian is one of my favourite genres of fiction. I know it's also one of Mr. Raffi's favourite genres of fiction. So one of the ones that I'm going to recommend that Miss Smith has got in new is called Happy Head. And this is the first two lines of the blurb. We are in an epidemic of unhappiness. Friends, here is the good news. Happy Head has the answer. When Seb is selected for an innovative retreat designed to tackle teenage unhappiness, it's his chance to finally be good at something. Getting close to the troubled Finn is definitely not part of the plan, but the challenges that the participants must undergo become more unsettling by the day, and together the boys start to question the true nature of the experiment. What is it that Happy Head really wants from them? So as you can see, dystopian books tend to be quite dark, so if you are someone who likes something a little bit dark and twisty, definitely would recommend Happy Head for you. If you're someone who prefers a bit more of a quick read, maybe try one of our short stories. This is a collection of short stories called Haunted, Ghost Stories to Chill Your Blood. And the reason we've picked this to recommend to you is because so many of you tell us how much you love horror as a genre, both in terms of films, TV shows, games, and those sorts of things. So what's brilliant about this is that it's a series of short stories. That means you can just pick it up and put it down without having to follow the plot the whole way through the entire length of the novel. So definitely would recommend this if you are someone who loves something a bit creepy, a little bit nerve-wracking, and in fact the last line on the back of the blurb is open if you dare. So that's a little challenge for you. Many of you also love what we call realistic fiction. Now, realistic fiction is where we're talking about texts that have real world issues. So for example, many of you, or all of you, read with me in Year 7, Boy 87, which is a story about the refugee crisis. Realistic fiction covers things like that: refugee crisis, homelessness, big life changes and events, parental divorce, anything like that. Something that often is just about growing up and finding your place in the world. And this is one of our favourite realistic fiction texts. It's called Chinglish. It's 1984. Jo Kwan's family has just moved to the new town to live in a cramped flat above their Chinese takeaway. Things are seriously awkward, whether Jo's dealing with annoying siblings, school bullies, friendship dramas, fashion disasters, and some very unlucky pets. Life is often hilarious, frequently confusing, and sometimes just makes Jo want to stick drawing pins in her eyes. As home life and her erratic parents get ever tougher, she dreams of breaking free to become an artist. Can Jo get through her crazy teen years? So what's really great about this piece of realistic fiction is that it's got a little bit of comedy woven into it, because sometimes with realistic fiction it can be very serious the whole way through, and sometimes you just need that little bit of lightness. But it's a really great book, and if you are someone who likes talking and thinking about real life issues, this is the book I would recommend for you. And on to comedy. Lots of you pick lots of the comedy texts we have here. Many of you pick things like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and I just thought that we'd recommend something that's a little bit older, a little bit more grown up for you, because you are getting older, and so you might want something just a little bit more advanced. So this is called The Humiliations of Welton Blake, and it's set around people in your age group, so I'll give you a little bit of the blurb. Welton Blake has done it. He's asked out Carmela Mackenzie, the best looking girl in school, and she's only gone and said yes. But just as he thinks his life is starting to change, Welton's phone breaks, kickstarting a series of unfortunate and humiliating events. Life for Welton is about to go very, very wrong. Another great thing about this text is that it's a really quick read. It's nice and short. So if you fancy a little bit of a giggle, but maybe a little bit of a older giggle than the Diary of a Wimpy Kids, this is the text for you. one of my favourite genres is fantasy fiction. This is a text called Inkspell, which is a sequel actually in a series called Inkheart. So we've got both of those texts, and it's just that someone happens to have the other one taken out right now, which is why we're recommending this one to you. So I'm going to read a bit of the blurb. A year has passed, but not a day goes by without Meggie thinking of Inkheart, the book that came alive. When she discovers that Dustfinger, one of its characters, has found a way home, she knows she must follow. But what is waiting for them between the pages of this dark, enchanted ink world? This series of texts is absolutely excellent. It's really well written, it's fast, it's pacey, so even though they're quite long as texts, they really grip you and they keep you for the whole, they engage you for the whole story, and you don't feel like it's taking a long time, you feel like it's really pacey. What I really like about fantasy fiction is the sort of dark and twisted elements, and I think that's mixed really well. Again, it's just a little bit older, you know, for some of you who are looking for a text that's just a little bit more advanced and a little bit more, deals with slightly more difficult themes, which I know many of you are interested in. So have a go at the Inkheart trilogy. They're really worth a read. Action and adventure. Now this is a book I read myself I think probably when I was, can't have been your age, but much younger than I am now. And it's written by James Patterson, who many of you might know because he's written a lot of action and adventure books, and he's written really famous things that have been turned into sort of TV shows and TV series. What I like about this one, it has a female protagonist who is just sort of kind of gets caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. It starts like this on the back. Maximum Ride lost her fight to save the world, but from the ashes of the old world, a phoenix has risen. She calls herself Hawk. Hawk doesn't know her real name. She doesn't know who her parents were or where they went. The only thing she remembers is that they told her to wait on the street corner until they came back for her. That was 10 years ago. The day that she finally gives up waiting is the moment her life changes forever, because the promise becomes reality. Someone is coming for her. The Maximum Ride series I really enjoyed and found really interesting. The reason there's like feathers all over the front page is because it's a metaphor for freedom and like freeing yourselves from sort of the tyranny of bad rulers. So if you like something that's a little bit powerful, a little bit punchy, then this is probably the text for you. Now, mystery is one of the genres that you get out most with us, and we've filled the library with mystery for you. Crime and detective fiction. This is a really great little series. It's called A Murder Most Unladylike Mystery, and it's set a little bit more historically. I'll read you a little bit of the back. Daisy Wells and Hazel Wong are back at Deep Den School for Girls, where plans are underway for the most exciting event, the anniversary weekend. But as parents arrive at Deepan, long-buried rivalries and secrets begin to surface. Then a shocking incident takes place in the woods. The girls are convinced this is murder, and everything points to one of the parents. Now, I would really recommend this if you really liked the TV series Wednesday, because it's sort of similar to that idea. It's set in a school, but it is... and so it has a young investigator who's solving the crimes, a young detective, but it also has that dark element, that murder mystery going on behind it. So if you like something like Wednesday, I think this series would be really great for you. Now, horror is another big fan favourite from you. Coraline is one of probably the most iconic horrors that we have in the library, and we have a lot of them. It was made into a movie. We also have the graphic novel version of it, if you want to just give that a try to see whether it's for you. Essentially, Coraline is a book about a girl who moves home, and she doesn't really get on very well with her mum and with her family. And she enters sort of an alternate dimension, and in this alternate dimension, everything seems perfect, but all of the people there are sort of living dolls. And so it ends up feeling quite eerie and creepy. I won't spoil the ending for you, but Coraline, again, quite a short, quick read, which is really good when you're studying, because obviously you're trying to find time around doing your homework and all of your extracurricular activities. But this book is absolutely chilling. You can try the movie, you can try the graphic novel first, but I would definitely say this is a must read for literally any pupil. It is absolutely excellent. And speaking of graphic novels, this is one of the Heroes of Olympus series. Now, many of you have talked to us about when we've studied in Year 8, we've studied ancient Greek and ancient Norse mythology, and many of you have talked to me about how much you enjoy all of those elements of mythology and literature that weaves those in. And these graphic novels are really great. 3 new heroes, 1 missing demigod, a curse that threatens to destroy them all. Graphic novels are so good because they're so dynamic, they're so interesting, they're so engaging. They hook you from the very first panel that they've got in there, which is the name for the images. Graphic novels are really brilliant because they're so engaging and so interesting. They hook you from the very first panel that they've got in there, and the panel is the name for each of the images. They often feel really fast-paced because they have lots of action going on through that imagery. They also are a really nice quick read. Again, as we've discussed, when you're studying sometimes you just want something quick to read in the evening. So definitely I would recommend this, particularly if you're a fan of all of that sort of ancient Greek mythology. Now, we've got loads of sports fiction texts, and I know that many of you say that PE is one of your absolutely favourite subjects at school. And so we've got some really brilliant texts that are specific to different sports, for example, football or tennis or basketball. But the reason that I think this is a really good book is because it deals with some quite difficult themes through a sports story. So rather than it just being just about a particular football match, it's about sport sort of surrounding someone's life and being part of who they are. So in my dreams, I'm always running. My feet fly over the ground. I'm sure that if I could just go a little bit faster, I'd take off and fly like an eagle. So this is called The Fastest Boy in the World, and it's about 11-year-old Solomon who loves to run and dreams of being a gold medal winning athlete in spite of his ragged shorts and bare feet. When grandfather announces that he's taking Solomon to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia's capital city, Solomon cannot believe his luck. But when grandfather collapses following the long journey, Solomon knows that he's the only person who can run for help. So it kind of includes the sport element, but it also includes some themes of loss. It includes some themes of poverty. So again, it's just a little bit older than some of our other sports books, which is why I think that you might like it. Classic and modern classic novels can sometimes be a bit daunting, a bit nerve-wracking for some of our pupils to pick up. I think there's this idea that if you pick up a classic, it's going to be really hard to read, or that it's just too smart for us. It's too smart for us to read. But the only way they became classic was because they were popular at their time. So there's nothing different between these kind of books and the books that I've just recommended to you. One of our best classic novels, and again a short one that I would recommend, is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Many of you have probably seen a movie of this, but what I particularly love about it is that there's nothing quite like this book. It's written in what's called nonsense fiction, and that was a very new type of fiction that had emerged during the Victorian era, where things just seem almost dreamlike all the time. And I love that Alice is this little girl going on this massive, enormous, colossal adventure, and that things are just never quite as they seem. It's a really great text. If you've enjoyed the movie, you'll definitely enjoy the book, and it is, again, a nice quick read, so I would definitely recommend that to you. And the last one I want to talk about today is our historical fiction. This one's called Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. One of the things that's really important to me and Miss Smith and Principal McCulley when we were setting up the library and thinking about the library is that we have diverse books, that we see literature from different authors from all over the world, from different races, from people with disability, from people with varied sexualities, from women, from men, from all different kinds of people. And that was so important to me, because I really think that literature is a gateway into these new worlds and into having a better understanding of each other. And what I think is really great about Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry is that it's set in the 1930s in Mississippi. So what we're looking at here is this is a time period that would have been called the Great Depression in America. And it was essentially when the American economy just collapsed. And so you had lots and lots of homelessness. You had people having to sell their children because they couldn't afford to feed them. People living just in shacks on the side of the road. Huge amounts of starvation. There was drought. Just terrible things happening. And there was a lot of racial prejudice, a lot of hatred, and a lot of discrimination, and terrible, terrible crimes committed against people of colour. And this is a book about a girl called Cassie, growing up in a place called Mississippi, and she's having to witness all of that prejudice and destruction around her. And the last line is, Cassie begins to see why she must find strength in the people she loves and stand up for what she believes in. And I think that that's an important message for us all, to sort of stand up in life. And I think that Cassie is a great role model for that. So if you're interested in something a little bit historical and you're interested in those tough themes like race and gender, then definitely try Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. Thanks guys, see you again.